Hello lovely people, welcome back to Really Good Crochet. My name's Ali and today we're going to be learning how to make the Trinity stitch. I've got two examples on the table in front of you today. One's made with, this one is DK yarn, square of Trinity stitch made with DK yarn, and this marmalade coloured one is made with Aran yarn. Both of these squares are for blankets I'm making for the crochet along, but I'll have some more details about that for you later on. Now for the tutorial today, I'm using some DK yarn from my stash, which is sitting in the old cereal bowl I use for my yarn bowl. I might at some point get round to buying a yarn bowl, but as always, today is not that day. Tip to newbies, you don't need a yarn bowl, you just need a bowl. Now, I've got my 4mm crochet hook and a little pair of scissors. If you do need to slow me down, although we do like to take our time around here, you can do so in the settings, which is by using the little cogwheel. If you're looking at this using your mobile phone, that's in the top right hand corner there. If you're using your laptop, then it's in the bottom right hand corner down there. Now the Trinity stitch is a single crochet 3 together, which is why we're using it in our stitch sampler blanket. It's worked over an odd number of chains, so I'm going to be working up an odd number of chains, and then we need one extra one for turning. So I'm going to be working up 16 chains. That's 15 chains to work over plus one for turning. Now we need to pop a slip knot onto our hooks. You can make your slip knot on however you make yours. I take my cut end of yarn, I wrap it over my finger twice, have the front loop and the back loop. You take the back loop and pull that over the front loop. You take the front loop and pull that all the way over the finger. And you can pop the hook into the loop created, tighten down, but make sure that your hook can move freely. And then we can crack on. Now, today's tutorial does not count as a lesson on how to crochet, but if you'd like to learn how to crochet, then I have a link to my introduction to crochet playlist in the description box down below. So, let's make our starting chain of 16. Yarn over, grab the yarn, pull through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16. Oh, it would be if I caught the whole yarn. That's better. Now we need to start. Let me just get you in nice and close so you can see what I'm doing. With a single crochet in the second chain from our hook. We never count the chain that's on the hook, we only count the fully formed chains hanging down from the hook. So that's 1 and 2. pop our hook into the chain, grab the yarn, pull up a loop. That's 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through both loops, you have your single crochet. Now, you need to go to start making your first Trinity stitch, you need to go back into the chain of the single crochet that you've just made and pull up a loop. You have 2 loops on your hook. Now go to the next chain, pop in your hook, grab the yarn, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. Then go to the next chain, pop in your hook, grab the yarn, pull up a loop. You have 4 loops on your hook. Once you have 4 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. And then nice and softly, nice and loosely, chain 1. That's important because when you're making your repeat rows, you're going to be making stitches into all of your chains. Now when you make your Trinity stitch, you always start the stitch in the stitch you've just finished. So you're going to start the stitch right there. So going back into the stitch that you've just worked into, just finished, pop in your hook, grab the yarn and pull up a loop. You have 2 loops on your hook. Go into the next chain, grab the yarn, pull up a loop. You have 3 loops on your hook. And go into the very next chain. Grab the yarn, pull up a loop. You have 4 loops on your hook. Once you have your 4 loops, yarn over and pull through all 4 loops. You're pulling up a loop 3 times. You'll have 4 loops on your hook because you always have that 1 loop there. Now going back into that stitch you've just worked into, start your next Trinity stitch. Grab the yarn, pull up a loop for 1. Into the next chain, grab the yarn, pull up a loop for 2. Into the next chain, grab the yarn, pull up a loop for 3, 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, and then nice and loosely chain 1. And then you do that all the way down your chain until you get to the last 2 chains. And then when you get to the last 2 chains, Just hold fire there, because we do something. Although you make your stitch as normal, mostly, there is one slight difference. And there is one slight difference because you need to maintain your stitch count. Nope. Pulled up a loop one too many times there because I was talking. The Trinity stitch is extremely versatile. It can be used for accessories, wearables, blankets, cushion covers, pot holders. It can be used for any number of projects because it makes for a nice piece of cloth that isn't wholey, that's still flexible, not so dense that it can't be, it's a lovely, lovely stitch. It's very pretty. 1, 2, 3, okay, and chain 1. Right, when you get to your last 2 stitches, you're going to make your Trinity stitch as normal in the first part. So pull up a loop for 1, pull up a loop for 2, pull up a loop for 3, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops. Now instead of chaining 1, you will not chain 1. Instead of chaining 1, you're going to go back into that last stitch and you're going to make a single crochet. So you're going to start with a single crochet and you're going to end with a single crochet. And that's how you're going to maintain your stitch count. That's really important. So you make the single crochet instead of making the chain at the end. And then once you've made your single crochet, then you can chain and turn. Now row 2 is your repeating row. So we'll go through this nice and carefully. As I said, you're going to be working into all of the chains. So whilst you will need to pay attention to start with, as you get used to making the stitch, you'll find that it becomes a nice restful stitch to make, providing you keep those chains nice and gentle and soft and loose so that you're not fighting the stitch. Okay, so you start with a single crochet, into that single crochet in the row below, and then you make your first Trinity stitch. So you've got, let me just, we've got the single crochet that you're going to put your hook in so you can get your first loop up from there, and then you've got the stitch there, and then you've got the chain. That's your chain there. Then stitch, then chain, then stitch, then chain. So every other stitch is a chain. So just be aware, that's why you need to keep your chains nice and loose. Okay, so back into that single crochet that you just made, pull up a loop. Into the stitch, grab the yarn, pull up a loop. 3 loops on the hook. Now, into the chain, grab the yarn, pet hair being optional of course, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops and chain 1. And do that again. Back into the stitch you just worked into, pop in your hook, grab the yarn, pull up a loop. Then into the stitch, grab the yarn, pull up a loop. Then into the chain. Want to get both loops. That's it. Pull up a loop, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 4. Chain 1. And you're going to do this all the way down nice and gently. 1, 2, oh, another chain made too tightly, 3, 1, 2, 3, 'And once you get into the rhythm of this stitch, it really does become very easy to make both of those squares. Each of those squares were made in an afternoon, and I don't stitch quickly anymore. I used to stitch quickly, like I used to read quickly. But I don't miss stitching quickly because I appreciate the craft more now that I stitch more slowly. Might take me longer to do something, might take me longer to finish a whip, but I appreciate the process more. There's nothing wrong with slowing down. Now, come to the last 2 stitches, and again, like on the row below, you're not going to chain 1 after you've made the stitch. You're going to make the single crochet. So, make the stitch into the stitch that you've just finished in, pull up a loop, into the stitch, next stitch, sorry, pull up a loop, and then into that very last stitch. Just make sure that we get both loops. That's it. And again, we don't chain after we've made the stitch. We make the single crochet. No. The second row one is always a little bit of a fight. The rest are fine. There we go. And then you can chain 1 and turn and continue. We'll make 1 more row together, and then I can tell you a little bit more about the crochet along. So, start with the single crochet, then go back into that single crochet and pull up a loop, into the next stitch, pull up a loop, into the next stitch, pull up a loop, got there in the end, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 and chain 1. Then into the stitch you just finished to pull up a loop, into the next stitch to pull up a loop, into the next stitch to pull up a loop, 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through all 4 loops, chain 1, and then continue to do that all the way down the row. And when you get to the end of the row, remember that you do not chain 1 with your last stitch. You make your single crochet instead of the chain, and then you can make your chain and turn after that, and so that you maintain your stitch count. And as you can see, that once you get going, it's one of those stitches that's down to our last 2 stitches now. One, 2, go through both loops, and then make the single crochet at the end. There we go. And hopefully you can see just how pretty that stitch is. Now, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the crochet along. Let me just let's get these out of the way. So, the crochet along is going to be a little bit different. Let me just pull back ever such a bit. There we go. That's a little bit better for you. Right, so the crochet along is going to be a little bit different because you can either do the squares in DK or in Aran. The stitch count is going to be the same for either. I have specifically chosen acrylic yarn, and whilst I have chosen, if you want to use Stylecraft Highland heathers, I've chosen just because I feel like we will be transitioning into spring, or sort of spring, because this is the UK and I don't know that we've had a proper spring now for a very long time. But the colours really suit the mood of the changeable seasons that we're about to be moving into, and but also the colours that will be coming back into bloom soon, and remind us that there are more colours coming into bloom again soon, and the Stylecraft do colours really, really well. So you can use Stylecraft Highland heathers if you want to. Most of my subscribers are in the UK, and most of the people who are watching me are from the UK. Do hit the subscribe button, please. It all helps out in the algorithm. Now, I got my yarn from my local Franklin's, and if you are in the Salisbury, Ipswich, Dovercourt, Chelmsford, or Colchester area, you can get down to your local Franklin's, who still have a sale on as of today. They're in their last couple of days of the sale. You can also order online for either delivery or pickup in store, and I will leave a link down in the description box below. I'm not sure if you can order if you're outside of those areas. You may be able to do so, but I don't know. You would have to check about that. They do not do overseas deliveries. I'm very sorry, but what I can tell you is one of the reasons I chose acrylic is because I also understand that times are still very tough for a lot of people, and until very recently I've been there. I used to have to buy one skein every few weeks, and that was how I got my yarn, and I know how that goes. And I had friends who donated me skeins of yarn, and I know how that goes. So you can do this as a stash buster. You can buy different yarn that better suits your budget. You can buy different yarn that you would prefer to get. If you would rather get DK or Aran yarn that isn't acrylic, please feel free. It's fine, because this is going to be one of those projects where it is not, the squares aren't, the tension and the eventual size are going to be basically entirely up to you. But I will better explain that as we go. What it boils down to is, this is going to be about making a blanket that helps you to find your style. It's about, I was thinking a lot about how the yarn community has always come together and taken care of people. The yarn groups who make blankets for hospices, and single parents and articles for people in need, and we've always come together and taken care of folk. And it's inspired by the communal blankets that get made. It's inspired by all of there were the groups that I was in, and all of the voices and the people who all played a part in teaching me how to crochet. All the little tricks and all the little gifts that I was given by all the different people who taught me how to crochet. My mate taught me how to crochet, but there were a lot of other people who were a part of that process, because I was part of groups who got together and crocheted and knitted together. So this blanket is about that. So the squares that you make, the tension, the size, in the end it won't matter. It will be down to you. If you want to make them a bit tighter and a bit smaller so that you're using a bit less yarn, that's fine. If you want to make them a bit bigger, if you like your tension to be looser and you don't mind getting through a bit more yarn, that's fine. There will be no right or wrong here. There will be no you have to stick to this tension. This is going to be about you and your style and how you and what makes you satisfied with what you do at the end of the day. It's also about us as a community, as crocheters, and what we do best. So whilst there are guidelines, guardrails, there's no rigidity. So it's about all of that. It's about my own dreams of one day setting up a yarn cooperative. It's about all of those things. So if you want to use the Highland Heathers, which incidentally is lovely yarn, I've made a number of squares now and it's lovely yarn. Fantastic colours and really nice stitch definition. If you want to use the Highland Heathers, then please do. If you would rather use different yarn, or if you'd like to do stash, whatever it is you want to do, you do that. And I will open up the community page, and we can all share what we're doing together. There will be. I will do videos on tips and hints and tricks that might help you, especially if you're a newbie. One of the reasons why I'm basing this on the single crochet and the extended single crochet is because I don't think people realise just how many stitches and how flexible that the single crochet is, but also because especially if you're a newbie, it will help you build your core skills. So I'll do a video dedicated to how to find the back bump of the chain and working into the back bump of the chain, and how to different ways of keeping the edges straight on your squares, and things that you can do to make it easier for when you're bordering the squares. Because I know that sometimes things like that, especially if you're a newbie, can make you very nervous and put you off. And I want you to feel as encouraged and as supported as possible. So that's what the crochet along is about. That's what the Simple Pleasures blanket is about. The size of the blanket at the end of the day will be down to how many squares you make. I'll show you how to join your squares. I will suggest borders for the blanket for you, and you can use those suggestions, or you can go off and find your own. But at the end of the day, this will be about helping you find your crochet joy, and helping you build your core skills, and just learning. Yeah, it's just all about those things. So, as I said, there will be the link for the sale at Franklin's, which is on, I think, for the last couple of 3 days of January, in the description box down below. And in the meantime, I look forward to seeing you in the next tutorial. Have a lovely, lovely week, lovely people. Take care. Bye bye.